Hello there, and welcome back to TerraFirmaCraft HardRock. I hope you're having a wonderful day. So I did have a question on my last episode. If I could quickly go over our create setup, since I never really fully explained everything. So let's look at this. We have two pipes drawing water out of an infinite water source into our boiler. The boiler has to be the smallest size is 4 tall. So that's what we've got here. I now have a blaze burner under here. I used to just have lava. If you have lava, it passively heats like an unlit blaze burner. And this is producing 2000 SU, or stress units, which comes out of the steam engine into a gearbox, which then goes into another gearbox, so I can swap the orientation. We could negate the need for this one, by lowering the steam engine down one level and putting it sideways instead of up down. But this way I actually have access under here. So that's why I have it done that way. So this feeds into the gearbox, which feeds into this gearbox, which eventually feeds into those chain drives on the other side of the wall, which you see here. The reason I have these gearbox here is so we can feed directly into the crushing wheels, which are two gearboxes opposite each other, so that they are spinning both inwards. So they have reverse spins, as you can see. This one is going clockwise, and this one is going anti-clockwise. And yeah, so this feeds into the chain drives, which run along the ground here, and power everything else. As needed, we switch the orientation of the chain drive, and you just do that by right-clicking with your wrench. So that's how I have the power coming up to the deployer and the press. And likewise how I have power coming up to the mixer. And this is not set up the same way anymore. But actually I don't know why I have that anymore. And then we have a shaft running out here to turn this, so we can turn this water and these into these olive pastes into olive water, which we can then process into olive oil. So yeah, that's our simple create system. It's not very good. It could definitely be a lot cleaner, but it does all I need. And you see right here, we do have a shaft running upstairs, and that is what powers our bulk washing. Right here, we have 3 fans blowing in. You could do a maximum of 6 fans blowing into one spot to have it be the most efficient. However, if you do that, adding something to get washed is very difficult, because you'd have a fan underneath, a fan on top, and a fan on all 4 sides, and you'd have no way to access. What I could do is set up one of those hoppers I have downstairs. And I think I can make a filter on this. I thought I could. I'm not seeing a way to make a filter. And tell it to only pick up certain items. Or alternatively, we can make a brass funnel from create, put that here with filter, and pick up only certain items, so we can dump gravel, sand, whatnot in here, dust. And the dust will stay until it's washed and then get picked up by the funnel. I haven't done that. I'm not really bothered by it too much, but that's our simple create setup. The end of last episode, I was trying to figure out what I want to do with our liquid storage. We take a quick flight over to our oil processing here, the distillation tower, which, by the way, we can put this jumbo tank onto a pipe, onto a barrel, and that will feed directly into this. What I was doing was using these pipes to pull out, and I have some immersive engineering barrels here holding the different fluids, but it's not very efficient. I mean, they only hold 12 buckets, and as it was rightly pointed out, and I never remember this because I never use them, we have options. Fluid drawers from the functional storage mod, which are actually quite cheap once you make the bucket, which I have made 3. Or we can do a fluid storage block. And this works just like the storage drives from Refined Storage, except instead of holding items, they hold buckets. So here we have 2 4K storage drives. We can make this fluid block, tack it on to another controller. If I wanted to do it this way, I'd have to make the fluid grid, another controller, and the block storage. And I think I'd have to make the interface so I can pump the fluid into the system. But then we can use this to store fluid. Okay, so right now I can take a bucket of water. I can put the bucket of water in here, but it puts the bucket and the water in as an item. That's not what we want. With the fluid block and the grid, we should be able to actually put the fluid in directly. And instead of it saying 600 pieces of sand, it would say like 600 buckets of water. So the smallest we can make is the 64K fluid disk or drive block. They have different names. And this will hold 64 buckets. The largest we could make is that one right there, which is 1,480,576 buckets. I don't want to do this. So we're going to go with something simpler. Maybe 1,000 buckets. I don't think we're going to need more than that. I mean, we could probably do it to 250 buckets for now. But I think I'm going to make one of those. Well, I'm going to make a storage drawer, the fluid drawer first, just so we can see what it's like. There's a double drawer and then there is a quad drawer. I'm debating if I want to do that. I'd have to go make more red or blue steel and more black steel. Well, that makes 4, 4. This makes 2, 2. You know what? Let's do one of these. Let's do that quickly. We want, we don't have enough planks. Okay, so let's make some of these fluid storage drawers. So we got 2. I'm taking one over here for now. I'm not sure how many each of these will hold. 16 buckets. That's not a lot. That means a 1x1, or just a standard, will hold 32. So a half hole. So one of these holds 2 16s. So I imagine this would hold 4 4s. But we should be able to make copper upgrades and gold upgrades and all that and put them in here also. So this might actually not be that bad of an option, especially they should be able to take fluid directly from these mechanical pipes if we pump them in. Making up some of those upgrades should actually be quite cheap or easy. I have access to a lot of copper. It multiplies the block fluid storage by 4, so 16 would become 64, and we can do that 4 times. I'm not doing the power of 4 here, but you get the idea. 64, 256, and then to the moon. So maybe I'll do that. It'd be a lot easier than having all this, and we can pick it up and put it down and transfer all the fluid. I like this idea. And upgrades applied. We've got the 2 drawers going, so we just flick this on and they automatically pump in. So this is exactly what I needed. And it does tell you how much is in each bucket, or drawer, not bucket. And what we could do is if I go back over here, I should be able to lock those drawers using the configuration tool. Yes. And if I wanted to move them back in there, I could have them linked up to the drawer controller, and they should show up in the grid. I'm not sure if they would. So hide, swap, lock. Okay, so now that they're locked, works the same way as a normal drawer. If I pull all of the sulfurized diesel out of this, it will remember that sulfurized diesel goes into that slot. So when we turn this back on, the sulfur diesel would go back into that top drawer. Now, I only have 1 upgrade in here right now, so these hold a maximum of 64 buckets. How much does it make to making a gold one? It takes a copper one, multiplies by 8, so it's twice as good. It takes copper to make it. I don't know if it's worth it right now, although we are almost full on sulfur diesel. Oh, that's fine because we're almost out of crude oil. And that's that. We're out of diesel, out of crude oil. And we now have 54 buckets of sulfur, 21 of lubricant, 32 of kerosene, and 30 of the naphtha. Okay, so what do we need to do to make... Well, first off, what can we do with the sulfur diesel? We can burn it. We can process it into normal diesel using a high pressure refinery unit. And we'll get sulfur in return. Well, a sulfur byproduct. Is that necessary? I don't think it really is, because we can use the sulfurized diesel to run our blaze burners. And we're producing more than enough power right now with the turbine that I don't really need the diesel generator for power production. All right, so then for the rocket fuel, we needed napalm and gasoline. Right, to make the gasoline, we need naphtha and gas additive, and the gas additive is made by distilling kerosene. Okay, so we're gonna need another drawer to store gas additive, and then another drawer, or making a double drawer to store gas additive and gasoline. But we can take the kerosene from here to do that. And napalm was gasoline, and we're gonna need to make a mixer. That's pretty cheap, all considered. Meanwhile, how are we doing over here? I just turned my drill back on to collect more uranium out there because we are out of uranium dust, or yellow cake uranium. And oh yeah, okay, we're about to run out of fuel in our reactor. So how much polonium we have? Not bad. Need a lot more, but we got a bit. And the mixer's done. I did forget to actually show you guys me making it, but it is very easy, honestly. And so the very simple setup is we have a wooden barrel up here with a fluid pipe pumping into the fluid input, and that fills up here with water. And then we have this down here. We can change between output only bottom fluid, output all fluid. We want output bottom fluid because when we put this olive oil paste into these slots here, the olive oil will fill up from the bottom. And that will output through this pipe into our barrel down here, which is olive oil water, which we've been picking up with our barrel and putting in our refinery over there to make olive oil. So what we do is we do that. You'll see they get this progress bar, and you're not going to see it right now because it is draining out, but it would start filling up with olive oil water if I wasn't draining it out. But you do see that the water is draining out. Once you put an item in, you're not getting it out. So don't put too much in here too quick. I had stacks in there, and the only reason it let me take them out was, I think, because I did a world change. I went into the nether and I came back out of the nether, and this had stopped and I was able to pull them out. But otherwise, you can't pull them out once they're partially processed, and they take a while to fully process. Maybe I can pull this out. Oh, okay. So it actually, because there is no progress bar, it looks like I can pull these ones out, which is useful, but that means you have to have like the exact right amount of water for it to work. Anyway, so now we have plenty of olive oil water. Not that I'm particularly going after the olive oil water right now. It's just a side effect as I was testing it. What we can do now is we can use this to make our gasoline additive, and I should really bookmark them. So we need the napalm fluid, the gasoline, and the gasoline additive. So the additive we get from the distillation tower, the gasoline we get from mixing the naphtha and the additive, and the napalm we get from gasoline plus aluminum grit. I've already talked about the aluminum grit. We just need to make aluminum and crush it in the crusher, which is crushing a bunch of other stuff right now. So just because we can't yet make the rocket fuel doesn't mean we can't first build the rocket. So we just made up some compressed steel sheets. Now, I did actually do this recipe wrong at first. You need a double sheet, not a normal sheet. So I had to go make up a whole bunch of extra steel. But we have 11 sheets, which means we can go over here. First, we need a engine frame, 4 steel, 4 iron nuggets. Nice and easy. Then we combine that with a bit of redstone, a bit of raw iron sheets, 3 steel ingots, and a engine fan. The engine fan you make by combining 2 propellers, and each propeller is a double raw iron sheet. So 8 total ingots of raw iron to make that. And that's the steel engine. Okay, next we're going to make the nose cone. Redstone torch, 3 steel ingots, and 1 compressed steel. That makes the nose cone. Over here, we need 2 steel tanks, and those are just alternating raw iron and steel. Then we need to make the rocket fans, and the rocket fans are 2 compressed steel along with 3 steel and 2 raw iron sheets. Each craft makes 2. We need 4 total. Let's fly up here, and then we can start just... Nope, never mind. I was going to say we can just shift click them in, but that is apparently not the case. And there we go. That's our tier 1 rocket. Have you ever just picked up a rocket and walked around with it over your head? Seriously? Well, I cannot place it down. I need to go look up how to place this. It's been a while since I last looked at Beyond Earth. Honestly, if I remember correctly, the last time I saw anyone play Beyond Earth was Hypno playing all the mods 6 or 7. So, you know, that was quite a while ago. Where'd all my leaves go? I'll have to chop down those cherry trees. They're not ever going to produce cherries again. If we look at Beyond Earth, we see that it... Oh, here we go. Rocket launch pad. That's what we need. So let's bookmark that. We can clear away these. So we're going to need to make one craft of these and place them down in a 3x3 grid. We need 4 steel, 8, 9 iron. Okay, that's very easy. So let's cook up that as steel. That gets us our coal dust we need to make the raw iron. Okay, and as soon as I have everything together, we'll come back, we'll make this, and then we'll place the rocket down. Alright, do this. Rocket launch pads. I totally miscounted. I made up more steel than I needed. Oh well. We'll use it eventually. Let's go back up to our roof. We put these down in a 3x3 grid. And now we can place the rocket down. And we can climb inside it. It has a countdown, but there's no fuel in here. We're not going to take off. And on the left-hand side there, you can actually see kind of like an altimeter. It shows us on the surface, and it shows where our space is. We are not ready to take off. What we are going to need to do is make an oxygen loader. It's going to take a blast furnace and more iron, and an oxygen tank, which is going to require red wool. I don't have any red wool. In fact, I don't have any wool at all. So I went out and found a few rams. And I'm just feeding them up. And actually, I gotta go feed them again now. And so we can start shearing them so we get wool, so we can make wool blocks. We're going to need an oxygen tank for the oxygen loader. as I just showed. But the oxygen tank is also... This one was used for something else. We need it for the oxygen loader. Oxygen bubble doesn't take one, but that takes an oxygen loader, so we would need one anyway for an oxygen loader. Spacesuit doesn't take one. That's weird. We do have to make another full set of mech suits, but I'm going to wait till we have all the polonium to make the SPS before I dedicate more polonium to making the mech suits. So that's a future plan. Then I do want to make a rover also, because then we can drive around wherever we go. The main goal of Beyond Earth is to unlock the ability to go to the Twilight Forest. In order to go to the Twilight Forest, we need to make a magic Twilight Crystal. That requires calorite, any dust, ostium, desh, and ice. If we look here at Beyond Earth, we'll see that from the moon we can get cheese and desh and ice on the moon also. From Mars, we can get ostium. Mercury just gives us iron. Venus gives us calorite. So that's the desh from the moon, ostium from Mars, calorite from Venus. So we're going to have to travel to each of those different planets to get the different resources. Additionally, the tier 1 rocket will only get us, I believe it will only get us to the moon. We can also build a space station and get to the space station with the tier 1 rocket. But tier 1 will get us to the moon, so we can start collecting desh. Because to make the tier 2 rocket, we need desh, which we then use to get to Mars. Once we get to Mars, then we get the ostium, which we need to make the tier 3 rocket, which we need then to get to Venus to make the tier 4 rocket. And with the tier 4 rocket, we can go anywhere else, I believe. Well, that's very zoomed out, isn't it? But hey, we got a rocket now. And I've made up our other fluid drawer here, and I've put in that barrel back. So what we can do now was the kerosene. Right, so we can grab the kerosene from here. Can I not grab it with a bucket? Okay, so I apparently can't bucket out of the drawer. Okay, I have it locked, but that should just keep it so that it remembers what is stored. It shouldn't be preventing me from pulling anything out. In case that is the case, we're going to just grab the configuration tool, unlock it, and see what happens. Yeah, no, that didn't do anything. Which, as I said, I didn't think it would. Yeah, I don't know why I can't withdraw anything from this. Next option would be... I have a pipe on me. I do have a pipe on me. Pick that up. Put that there. Put that on top. Grab configurator. Switch this to fluids. And pull out. Okay. So that did pull the fluid out. So I don't know why that happened that way, but we found a workaround. I can now put that there. That all goes into here, and it's loading up. But did I turn it off? I turned it off. Okay. Problem mostly resolved. Weird that it worked that way. Okay, so now that's done, we can grab this, put that back here. Since this has naphtha in it, when this processes the kerosene down, it'll create diesel, which will go into the second drawer. It'll create gasoline additive, which will go into the barrel on the ground. It'll create the naphtha, which will go into here. Which I can then take the gasoline additive out of there and put it in there. And then to make the gasoline, we combine the naphtha and the additive. Right. Okay. So then let's swap that on. Get a massive lag spike as I do. Aha. One little bitty, tiny bit of naphtha went into there, and now it is clogging up the whole system. Because of course it is. There we go. So now it's loading gasoline additive into there, more sulfurized diesel into there, and more of the naphtha into there. And so we're just about ready to make the gasoline portion of the rocket fuel. And the napalm, we just don't have the component, which requires antimatter, which requires this, which isn't done yet, but I've started adding our SPS casings as we're crafting them. I do need to go process down more uranium to make more polonium. Okay, so to make the gasoline, we need a 7:3 ratio. So 7 buckets of naphtha to 3 buckets of the gasoline additive, and that'll give us 10 buckets of gasoline. Let's turn that off. The recipe does not have a catalyst, so it will just run and work. And then what, aside from making the rocket fuel, what do we need gasoline for? Well, we can use it just like diesel to superheat a blaze burner for 40 minutes. We need to make napalm and rocket fuel, and we can crack it or distill it into peat coke and LPG, which we can use to make plastic, similar to how we can use diesel, biodiesel to make plastic. Okay, that's not too bad. You know, it's a decent use for it if we're gonna have extra, instead of needing to use biodiesel to make plastic, although I'm not exactly short on seed oil or ethanol, so making biodiesel is very easy. Oh, we can make LPG just by putting it in the thermopneumatic press. Also, we don't need to distill it in the tower. Oh, it does take pressure, but that's easy enough to do. Alright, so take the catalyst out, flip the switch, and now we have gasoline. Still, as I said, quite a ways away from making rocket fuel, but this means we can take some of the gasoline, make napalm, and we have everything ready, just waiting for the antimatter. I think this is a pretty good place to end for today. We got a rocket, we got quite a bit done. We just can't fly yet. But until next time, thank you for joining me today. I hope you all had a wonderful day. Thank you to my channel members for your support, and I'll see you all next time. Later.